Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to today's Power Hour presented by Advantage Route Systems. Our presenter today is David Krodel, and this week he will be talking us through Mango Dispatch Manager for service calls. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we will review them at the end of the session. Please be advised that we are recording the session, so if there is anything you miss, we will be sending out a link. Again, thank you for joining us today, and without further ado, I'll turn it over to David.
Well, thank you, Kaylee. It's good to be with you all again. We've had 2 or 3 power hours here in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and this week we're going to be focusing on part of the new Mango Dispatch Manager. And before I even get into that, I might add that I'm going to be using the 704R3 release, build 3636. This just came out yesterday or the day before, so it's fresh off the presses. It's been through all of our testing. Some of you have already received it. We send out advanced copies to some customers who want to help us get all the bugs out. Now it's in really good shape, so if you have not downloaded this version, which is 704R3 build 3636, either look at the notification. I think we sent you an email in the last few days, or if you really need some help, you can chat or text or email tech support, and they can actually help get you upgraded as well. And one of the big features of this new release is Mango Dispatch Manager. We've had a couple of power hours on it already, but today I thought I would just hone in on one aspect of it, and that is for service calls. Now, as we do this, I'm actually going to take the liberty to show you some things that are actually new on the handheld. So we're going to go from Mango Dispatch Manager to the handheld. Here's a little outline of what we're doing today. Let's see if I get my clicker going the right way here. Okay, so as we go into MDM, we'll be looking at how to pull up a customer so that you can actually create a service order for them, go through the whole process of putting faults on, working with service codes, etc., and then scheduling them time-wise, and then shooting this down to the handheld so the work can actually be done. And then we're going to be talking about recording time. And this is a new feature that's actually in the R3 release that allows you to go into a little bit more detail than what we've been able to do in the past in recording the time spent on servicing things. So the last 15-20 minutes I'm going to pretty much spend entirely on the handheld, and you may find some fun things there. Also, as we talked earlier, those of you that caught one of the earlier power hours, I'm not going to be covering everything with MDM. I'll go through a brief overview, so if you did miss it, you won't feel like you're too far behind. But one of the things about MDM is it gives you a single cockpit that allows you to see what's going on in your business, where your dispatcher can know what's happening, and from there you can do things like optimize routes, create load orders. Obviously, for product delivery, load orders is really important. However, you may want to tie certain service work to parts and be able to have those load orders be created for those as well. Moving stops around, we'll be showing you how that works. After the service work has been done, you'll even be able to see what happened, etc., on the invoice that you might want to leave for the customer or other delivery notes. And we'll obviously be talking about creating service orders. So, okay, I think that's about it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And let me just jump over to the software. And we have a good data set here. And this is Basic, a coffee delivery company that also wants to do equipment servicing. So for example, we'll go ahead and start up here to get Mango Dispatch Manager going and drop down here to Mango Dispatch Manager. And then as we get going, you'll notice that
you go through that one first? Dispatch Manager?
It's an advanced class.
And why did you just tell me to move that one?
I figured
Why did you have me give people?
I figured.
Okay, we got one person got unmuted accidentally. So here we are. We have got the Mango Dispatch Manager screen. We'll just take 2 minutes and kind of retrack what we did the first class that was a little bit more extensive. And that starts out here by loading up stops. So we pick a date. We're going to just go ahead and do this for today. We'll touch refresh. And as we do that, it will bring in all of the whoops, I guess I didn't quite click it hard enough. There we go. It'll bring in all the routes and deliveries for a given day. Now, you may have things set up where your route type is set up where you have service routes. And if that's the case, you could deselect any type of delivery and install routes and then do refresh. And you'll notice then, of course, you would get much fewer customers showing up on the screen. We're going to be talking about that here in just a second. Okay, so as you can see now by choosing only service routes, we don't get as much information. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at all for now. You also have the ability to pull in different individual routes. Also, you can save and create profiles. We talked about this earlier, where you'd be able to say, okay, I only want delivery routes, I only want a certain area of town, or if you have multiple branches, be able to isolate those as well. So we're just going to go ahead and let everything pop up here. We don't need a profile, so we'll just cancel that. And we're going to do a refresh. Okay, so as you look at this screen here, I'm going to hide some of the things that are on my screen. Okay, as you look at the screen, you'll notice that on the right-hand side, across the top, you do have all of the routes that have been loaded up here that I have chosen over here on the left-hand side. In addition, you'll notice that there are a number of different stops. Each stop is marked by the name as well as the city, state, and zip. Unless it's missing, then it will pick up the second line of the address. So as you can see, we have red ones, green ones, dark gray, light gray, etc. Well, you may say, well, what is this? Why are there so many colors? Well, let's go ahead and just take a look at the settings. Now, as you come up here to the settings icon, you'll notice that there is a way to configure all kinds of different things. Like across the top here, you'll see that we have route header colors, and the route can be in one of 4 states. For example, it can just be just available, and that's what white means. The yellow, as you see over here towards the right-hand side of the screen, would be a route that's actually been downloaded to a handheld. Now, there's a slight difference between the yellow and the lighter green here, the lighter green representing someone has started that route, which means not only was it downloaded, but at least one stop has been finished. So that's why you'll notice that in a minute here, as I start to service people, I'm going to be working off this route R05. It will actually turn from yellow to this lighter green. Now, it stays that way until the end of the day, and then it'll turn into a finished route. So as your driver uploads all of his stops for the day on his handheld, it will then turn dark green. And even notice too, for the ones that have been started, there's a date and a time underneath to help you understand when that last activity occurred, i.e. when the route was downloaded, when the last stop was, or when the route was finished for the day. Now, in addition to the colors for the route, we also have our stop colors. You notice you see red and green, and if I look carefully over here, you can see kind of an orangish color, light gray, dark gray. Well, these are all defined here in this middle section where you can say it's green means it's a default stop. If you have a regular scheduled delivery plan or a regular service activity where maybe you go and clean something every week, then it would be green. If it is created from an order, which we're going to show you how to do here in a few minutes, it would be red. Any stop that has been completed for the day would turn dark gray, and skip stops are light gray. So you can see on this one route here, they have 3 stops. Each of those were actually skipped. Over here to the left, you can see the darker gray color indicating that it was completed. So as we go along here, you'll notice these colors will be changing. If you don't like the colors, you're more than welcome to just simply click on that icon and then choose another color. So we could make skip stop be a dark maroon, for example. And as soon as I save this and hit refresh, these 3 stops here now will be this other color. You'll also notice too some colors that you have control over relate to the little small bar to the left side of your stop. Like here, for example, let me just get my highlighter out so you can see it a little bit easier. Here, you'll notice there's a green color. Okay, that means they have no credit hold. Everything's okay. Up here, you'll see there's a light pink. And for some stops I don't see on the screen right now, you may see either a blue for COD or a bright red there to indicate that they're hold service. So this can be helpful, particularly if you are working off of regularly scheduled stops and you want to make sure that their credit is clear before doing a rush order. You have that capability. So number of different options here that do help you as far as setting colors. Another important one is over here in the tabs, you'll see a couple of different options. Under miscellaneous, that's an important one. You'll notice that there's a little box here called use time. Well, the reason that's so important is because if you don't have use time turned on, it basically will treat these as a delivery type customer where there's not as much importance placed. Oops, looks like we got kind of a noisy background there. Apologize for that. Can you hear it?
Sorry about that.
Okay, so if you don't have it set up for use time, then it's just going to run things together. You're not going to be able to do some of the functionality that I have here that will allow you to actually set up fixed times for various people. So we're going to leave that. Mango mapping, a couple other settings here right now, nothing that's actually critical, and we'll just save right there. So notice that the skip stops automatically turned to the maroon color for us, and we'll just have to remember that. Obviously, once you get happy with colors, best off you don't change them every day. That way you can keep track of what's really going on. So as you have the route set up, you also have the various stops. And you'll notice that I have this defaulting presently for each of my time increments to be 10 minutes. That's user changeable. Some of you may find that a quarter hour is the smallest increment you would ever do service, maybe a half an hour, or potentially you might even want to set it as big as an hour. And so as you can look here, you can see I've got a number of different stops that are all set up for 10 minutes. Well, as you can probably imagine, they were just kind of tossed onto there. Now, as you look over here at this Auric, this one in kind of a bright red color, you'll notice that it actually starts at 6:30 a.m. and goes until 7:20 a.m. So it's a little bit less than an hour. And once again, with this, by using your mouse, you can drag and drop stops from one route to another. You'll see here in a few minutes we can move them till the next day if we want to, or we can even just put them up into what we call the parking lot, which is this gray area up here. So we could take this stop, for example, has them in service. We'll just haul it up to here, and it just kind of puts it in a holding spot, a parking lot, if you will, so that you could then decide whether you want it to be on a different route, maybe move it to another day, etc. Also, you have the option, like let's take this stop over here for Eagle Home Mortgage. Well, if we double click on that stop, you can then take this and drag it so that, let me scoot this down a little bit. There's my Eagle. Okay. Eagle Home Mortgage, we'll double click, and you could take with your mouse and just drag it down for as many cells as you want that would then represent the time that is going to be allocated for a particular service activity. So if you are using this as a availability type tool, then you'll want to make sure that you do have each stop adjusted for the amount of time that you expect it to take. And if you need to, you can come down here, for example. We can take all of these stops. We'll just take several of them here by clicking on the first one, holding Shift down, and moving that down to a different cell. As we do that, that will free up some time here. So you can see now we understand that there's an opening starting at 7:40 a.m. for till 8:10, so a half an hour. So with this, by just simply dragging and dropping the various appointments, you can move them to whatever location you want. You can allocate the amount of time that you want for that particular stop, and it makes it really easy to get a good visual on what you're doing. Let me just pause. Have there been any questions yet? No questions. Okay, great. Once again, if you do have lots of service technicians, you may be forced to scroll out here to the edge. You can also use the scroll bar over here on the side to go up and down as well. And you can see I've got some appointments here later in the day, and even over here on my Route 5, which is one that I've got planned for. So let's take a little different tack here. Let's go ahead and pretend that a customer has called in and they need some type of service to be done, and you want to take this service request. So to do that, we can come over here to this icon. You can see it flashing here, gray and blue, and click on that. And as you hold your mouse there, it'll even say search for customer. So we'll go ahead and do something here. I'll just put in part of a customer's name. I'll put in taco and do search. And then you can see a browse grid of customers, frankly, who happen to be in Tacoma, Washington. And you'll see their account number. You'll see a little icon here indicate, or a tick box showing whether they're an active customer or not. And then you'll have their name and address and their city, state, and zip. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Guild Mortgage by simply double clicking on it. And then that brings us into a screen that is for the entry of service orders. So as we click on the tab here that said service order, as you can see it with my mouse, it brought up that this customer actually has 3 pieces of equipment that have been assigned to that particular account. So if we want to take a service order, we could say, okay, which piece of equipment are you having problems with? Well, our Keurig is just not getting hot. So as you come down here, you can see, you can click on Keurig. Over here, we have fault codes and service codes. Normally, when you're talking to the customer, you want to enter a fault code that will allow you to put in what is wrong. So we'll go ahead and click on that drop down, and it does not get hot. So we'll go ahead and just select that particular item. Those of you that aren't familiar with fault codes, these are things that you can set up while you're putting your equipment servicing together by coming over here to List, Equipment, and then you have service codes and fault codes here. And this is where you're able to, well, in a few minutes we'll be talking about service codes as well, but this is where you can create things like what's wrong, meaning a fault, and service codes typically are what you're doing. So you may have a service code, for example, to replace the filter, or maybe you have a service code to adjust the thermostat or replace the thermostat. Any type of normal activity that you would be doing on a recurring basis, you would probably want to make a unique service code for that. It's kind of like a shorthand that allows you to put things in a little bit more quickly. So go back into your Route Manager, go under Lists, Equipment, and you can set up equipment service codes and fault codes here. As we go back to the MDM screen, you notice we chose NH for won't get hot. Now, you'll notice that the serial number was duplicated here. That's there so that you could actually choose multiple service codes or fault codes. So for example, maybe it didn't get hot and it had a really bad smell about it. Okay, so now we've actually added 2 different fault codes, and these are going to be available for you on the handheld. So you can keep coming in for the equipment that is allocated to a given customer and put in either fault codes, or if you really do want to put a service code. So for example, you know that the Keurig cold tank is bad, well, you could go ahead and actually just choose a service code. So you have your choice between fault codes or service codes. Now, once you do that part, you want to come down here to the bottom of the screen where you can enter the date that you would like to service this particular account. So we're going to go ahead and assign it to today, and we are going to assign it to our route R05 that I've already been working with here. So we're going to come down here to Steve and pick R05. Now, if you're talking with the customer and they say, well, when can you be here? You can either look at the schedule and see, well, I've got time at, if you click over here, we can minimize this. Whoops. You can see that you have, I got myself kind of covered up here on it. See what available times are. For example, I do have some time at 8 o'clock. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in 8 o'clock as an available time. And with all this stuff on here, I think it's going to take me close to an hour, and notice it wants it in minutes, an hour to complete this particular service. So I put that in. If I put exact as a tick box here, that means that I am unable to drag this customer to a different time. So you want to be careful how you use that, but you may want, if you are committing and you say, you know what, sir, we will be out here positively at 8 o'clock, then you could tick it as exact. We're going to leave it unchecked right now so we can actually play around with it. Now, you could also have room here, and if some of you are going, well, isn't this kind of like how the delivery order works, just when you pull up a customer in Route Manager? Yeah, it's the exact same process. We're duplicating it and putting it all together in this single program so that whoever is doing dispatching not only is able to know where their trucks are, see what work has to be done, but when a call-in comes for a new order, you're actually able to enter that immediately while talking to the customer. We'll just go ahead and put a little note here. Need to also check the filter on the Aquabar. Okay. So you can put any other messages that you want to put in there. And then when you do have everything the way you want, you can go ahead and check the Save Order button. You also have the capability here of sending an email to the customer, letting them see this order, if you will, so they know that you're coming. Also over here, you can even send an SMS message to your customer. So if you want to send a reminder to them or just let them know now, because you're going to be out there in an hour or so, this is just a quick way to confirm what service is being planned for them. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to save my order. It'll come up and tell me that it was successful, and I'll hit OK again. It does show me that there was something done to this particular route. If you do have parts and things that have to go with an order, then you can actually update your load order associated with that van. Obviously, we're already out. We've already downloaded the handheld. We're just going to come over here on the side. Oh. Okay, so now we're happy. So we'll just come over here to the side. And as we come down here to 8 o'clock, you'll see that indeed we have the order created. An hour has been blocked for this technician, and the order is on its way to the handheld. How do I know that? If you look over here to the side, you can see, for example, there's a yellow bar here. This yellow bar means that the order has been sent to the handheld, but no action has been taken. In a minute, you'll notice that I'll jump over to the handheld, I'll accept that order, and it will turn green. You also notice down here that there's a pink bar. Well, that means that this customer is past due. That's what this pink P means over here on the left-hand side. On the right side, you'll see the P, meaning that there is a pending order for that particular account. What's also nice too is sometimes you got a lot of things on the screen and you don't know where this order might be. Well, if you want to, we'll just come up here and type Guild up here at the top of the screen and hit the search glass here, and then it will actually hone in to wherever Guild appears on the delivery screen. If I want to do it again, I can keep hitting search. Obviously, I only have it here once, so it's bringing it right here. So that can be helpful, particularly if you do have lots of orders. One thing, too, is the larger the screen you have, the better. If you have some screen with 4K resolution, well, it really makes it nice and let's pretend like it's 30 inches across. Okay, I'm sure some of you are wanting to nudge the boss right now to see for a bigger monitor. But with that, it does give you the visibility to see everything at one point in time. I've got this scaled down so that it'll work here on our GoToMeeting presentation. But a bigger screen really does make it very, very handy so you're not scrolling as much, you won't miss things, and it is scalable depending upon how large your monitor might be. So as you can see here, this order now is ready to go. Why don't we go ahead and jump on over to the handheld. So I'm going to minimize this window. I downloaded this route ahead of time. Whoops, we don't really need that anyway. So we'll jump over. There's our handheld. Okay. So those of you that are already familiar with Route Manager have probably seen this. An RM Live order has come through. Every order, as it's transmitted to the driver, will allow you to either accept it or decline it. If I decline it by hitting the red X, it will ask for reasons. So you can't just say, oh, I don't want to do it. You're going to have to say, I'm not in the area. The reasons here are ones that you can set up yourself. You can set up half a dozen reasons. Not in the area, don't have the right parts, have too many appointments today, or leaving early, or whatever you want to have. We're just going to make it easy on the dispatcher and go ahead and hit the green check mark. And what that means is now that order has been accepted. If I jump back over here to my Mango Dispatch Manager, you'll notice here in just a second, depends on how fast you have the refresh. Well, it's already done it. You can see it's turned green here. So we know that that driver has that order. If we flip-flop back here now to our handheld and go ahead and look, you'll notice that the Guild Mortgage Tacoma, we've got it coded for downloaded orders to be a light pink color. Well, you can see it's at the top. You notice it's in pink. I've actually got a couple others here that I downloaded earlier that are specials for the day as well. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at that. So once again, these are the various service calls. If you look carefully for anything that you create on the Dispatch Manager, here for example, you'll notice that everything is in the proper order for the day. Even here's one, the very last one is this Hagen, Kurth, and Perman Company. It will keep them exactly the same order on your handheld. The only exception is when you do accept a new order through RM Live, it comes up here at the top. So we're going to go ahead and do this one first that we created before we did the RM Live. So we're just going to simply touch that particular customer. And as we come into it, this one didn't happen to have an alert message, but if we come over here to the little E in the left-hand corner, this will show us all of the pieces of equipment that are installed at that particular customer. As you can see, they actually have 4 different units. 3 of these have some type of service that's going to be required today. Notice that the fault code comes out. I had one set up as generic, another one that said makes noise, another one that says does not get hot. Now, what I can also do, we'll just take this last one. If I just barely touch it or click on it, there you go, it will turn blue. Once it's turned blue, you can actually see the service history. Whoops, this one doesn't have any. I thought that one did. Let me try another one here. There you go. You will see any repairs that have been done previously to this piece of equipment. So this had some filter changes. One was done in 2016. late in the year and the other one in early 2018. So you do have access to any repairs that may have been done for this particular unit. Likewise, we're going to show you here in a few minutes, you can actually do repairs now and either take care of these fault codes or do some kind of maintenance. And in order to do, well, I'm going to hold that thought for 1 second. Before I do, I'm going to take the next one up here that starts out with, it's a type 8, well, I'll do the top one, an ACE D. If you touch with your finger and hold that for about 3 seconds, it will bring up all kinds of supplemental information about that piece of equipment. And all of this is being maintained on your desktop. So we can see that basically this was installed in August of 2015. We see a location of Maine. We may fix that here in a minute. We have the first install date for that piece of equipment, as well as other information like where it was bought from, when it was manufactured, what type of rental rates, if there are any on that particular unit. So we do provide your technician a full set of information that helps them to do a better job. Now, as we came back up here, we said it was located at the main. Well, I don't know what main meant. It's really located on the back dock. So I can touch the button down here called location with my finger, and it will allow me to then modify this to be back dock. Okay, and we can hit save. I think this is only about 15 characters, so you really can't write an essay in there. But now notice that that is not only updated on this screen, but in addition, this will be transferred back to the desktop so that the next time somebody pulls this up on their handheld, the location will now reflect the back dock. So quite a bit of information here that's available for your technicians. Well, now let's jump in on this one here that makes noise. So we touch it, it turns blue, and notice then down here at the very bottom that there is a set of tools. So we're just going to touch the set of tools, and as we come into this, and this is a really quite a new feature here that just came out with R3, and candidly, I think we're still tweaking a little bit just to completely nail it. But notice there's a little clock down here in the left-hand corner. Well, as soon as I touched that, it turned red. And the reason is this has started a timer. And so all the time that I'm working on this particular piece of equipment, it's tracking how many minutes have elapsed since I first touched it. And so I'm just going to kind of pause here for a minute just to stall a little bit. Well, actually, let's keep on going. We're going to leave that timer going. However, we're going to touch the little green plus over here. As we do that, now we can see the various service codes that are available that you can now do for this piece of equipment. So, for example, let's scroll down here. Obviously, depending upon how you have them arranged, you'll want to sort them by the code here. So, it was making noise. Well, maybe we figured out that that was the heater safety switch that was making all that noise. I know some of you that are deep into the business are thinking I'm totally off my rocker and have no idea what I'm talking about. This is an example. So as I touch that, I can go ahead then and continue. Or the other thing I could have done while I was there was make a comment about that. So let's do another thing. Let's say we fixed a faucet assembly. And before I hit the continuation, I'm going to touch comment. So we want to make some comment about this particular part. So what I'm going to do is to use the voice to text capability. I'm going to go ahead and push the little speaker down here at the bottom, and the faceplate was changed because there was numerous scratches on the faceplate, period. New paragraph. We let the customer know that indeed they need to take better care of the faceplate, as we will not replace it again without a service charge of $50, period. So now I turned off the speaker, so it's not going to capture everything I say from this point forward, but you'll notice that a couple of things. Number one, it does a very good job of recognizing what you're saying. I don't speak the best English in the world, but it seemed to record everything I said. And this box will grow until basically almost the entire screen, so that you actually do have enough room to put a fair amount of message material in there. When you're done, simply hit the green arrow, and now that's going to be recorded. We're actually working on another enhancement literally this week that will allow these messages to actually print on a receipt, a service ticket, if you will, that you could leave with the customer so that they'll have a complete written record there. Right now, this just gets transferred back to the desktop and shows up on the service history, which at a future point in time will come back down to the desktop or to the handheld. So we'll just call this done. So we've actually done a couple of things. Now let's go ahead and record our time. So notice the clock is still red. I'm just going to go ahead and touch that. It just turned green, and it's telling me that I spent from 11:32 to 11:36, or 4 minutes, on what's showing up as travel time. That's not true. It was actually direct service. Looks like somebody can't spell. And so you can have an hourly rate pop up if you want to. And then you also do have the option of whether this is being recorded strictly for your internal purposes or if you want to bill the customer. So if you are billing the customer, obviously you would want to have a rate in here. Maybe you charge $80 an hour. You're done with that. If you like, you can say, I'm also going to include an hour of travel time. So I'm going to back this up here and say I spent 1 hour of travel time, and I'm going to make that at $40 an hour. Done. Okay. So all the time that you do, and if you want to pick a new piece of equipment now and start that up, you can do again. This time is visible at the end of the sale. And so I'm just going to go ahead now and we'll say, whoops, it wants to skip reason here. So let's put a skip reason. Okay. And then notice now, if I, down here at the very bottom, I have this time clock, and that will show me, looks like I messed up. Okay. It will show me my travel time, and it should have had my 600ths of an hour of direct labor time. And at this point, if the technician says, well, I need my direct service time, well, we can go ahead and put, maybe we have a 1/10 of an hour minimum. So we'll do 0.10 at $80 an hour, and done. Okay. And now I messed up again. Okay. So we'll change that, edit it, and now we'll call that direct service time. There we go. Okay. So at this point in time, you can see then that I billed them for travel time. I billed them for my direct time, and I'm going to go ahead and just call it quits. And we'll just pretend like we're not going to print a receipt, but we're going to save it. We can do that, capture the signature of the customer, and get their name because we can't read it, and hit done. Okay, and now you'll notice that it turned a hot pink. This is just because of the colors that I had previously selected here for this. And now what we're going to do is go back to the desktop and actually see that service ticket on the desktop. I did see a couple of questions. Any of them directed to me? Or you answered them all, or?
Yes, one was being able to access Mango file PDF files on the handheld.
Okay.
Pointers to the route info before pictures we can do that with. And the other question is, will it also send an email that is associated with an account?
Meaning that you arrived or completed it or sent the invoice or what?
Like an email after the equipment is serviced with information on what was done.
Sure. And that basically works like our normal receipts. However, you'll probably want to structure it differently and not say invoice, or maybe it is an invoice if you're actually billing them for that, or you could call the receipt a service ticket. So let's go ahead now and go back up to our desktop to see what's happened. So as we come into the desktop, you'll notice that this stop that we did is a different color. So now if we right click on this, okay, let's get it to right click, and do the invoice viewer. Oh boy, I got a little technical problem here. Say again? Yeah, it's not actually bringing it up. I may have to choose a different one here. Let me try this one over here. With the invoice viewer, you should be able to, and something just went awry here. Maybe it hasn't gotten all the way back, but oh, I know what happened. It's because I chose a skip reason for it. Okay, anyway, the bottom line is with the invoice viewer, you should be able to view all of the work done and be able to see the signature of who signed for it. And over here on the left side, you should be able to email that directly to the customer. So you actually would have had a choice here, depending upon how you have your desktop software configured. It can be set up every time that a customer gets a ticket like this to email them automatically without having to go through this process. However, the receipt that's created will indeed have all of the service activities on there, each piece of equipment that was serviced, etc. And you can view that. And in the next release, what we call R4, they'll be out here in a couple of months, we're actually going to allow you the capability to edit things on it. So if you want to correct some of the time, if the customer calls and says, hey, the guy was here for an hour and a half, but he played with my dog for over an hour, I don't want to get billed for that, well, then you could actually come in and make an adjustment to the time to make an hour be non-billable and an hour be non-billable and a half an hour to be the actual charged amount. So once again, you do have flexibility here in the cockpit to be able to make changes and do things if you give your dispatcher that type of capability. Now, also while you're building your routes, there are quite a few things up here that are available. For example, you know here, we'll just pick this one here. We haven't downloaded it yet. So as you can see, it looks like there's 8 or 10 stops, service calls that you want to do. You can plot these on a map so you can actually see where all of those customers are for that particular day. So as you do that, it will bring it up. And you can see here's my warehouse. And up here are where my stops are. And so you could take a look at this, and you can even see here, for example, it's expecting you to drive about 30 miles. If you say, well, you know what, I don't know if I really want to do all these people, you could look at, say, okay, these two people over here, which is Swedish Central Services, and who's right behind there? Let's close that one. Zoom in a little bit. There's one. Also, it looks like maybe all of this one complex. So you may say, well, you know what? I'm just going to take all of those off the route for today and assign them for tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and close this. As you can see here, there's where your Swedish Heart stuff is. We'll go ahead and choose these 3. And we're going to right-click here and change the stop time. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to change the date for selected stops. There we go. And so as we do that, we're going to go ahead and push it off till tomorrow. But I know Route 4 has a full day, so I'm going to actually reassign it to Route 5. Hit OK. And now those stops are going to be removed here as it refreshes. Okay. As you see it here, and now I scroll down, those stops. Did all of them disappear? At least the one I highlighted? Maybe I didn't get all of them. What's that? They did. Okay. So once again, you can do selective stops by doing the first one, holding the shift key down and do the last one, or you can hold the control key down and just touch the ones that you want. They'll turn a different color. And then as you do that, you can say, change the date for these till tomorrow. We'll even leave them on the same route. Hit OK. And we want to move them to Friday. Done. And you'll see here in a second they'll disappear. So now we have fewer ones. So up at the top, once again, you do have lots of options. Let me just go through these briefly, and then we'll leave some time for some questions. But you have the ability to plot them, which you saw. You can optimize them. So once you've dragged these appointments around, you could tell it to show you how would be potentially a better way of doing things. Now, if you have firm appointments or something set up as exact, well, you're not going to be able to move them around. It's going to have to stay for the time assigned. Likewise, if somebody calls in sick and says, hey, we're not going to do any of this route today, let's just move it all till tomorrow and I'll get my brother to do it. Well, then you can just say move all stops to a different route. Showing the truck information will allow you to see what parts are on a truck, and that way you could tell whether or not before you assign a service call, maybe you have to swap out a filter. Well, with this, then you'd be able to see if that filter is actually on the truck. It's not going to show up on this one because I haven't downloaded it, but it would have a list of all your parts here and what's available to your technician to use. Other things that you can do would be to create a loader. We kind of talked about that. You can also just mark everybody as skip for the day. A little bit unusual, but you might want to do that. Then you have some tools here that allow you to send a note to a driver. You can email your driver or even send an SMS message to your driver/technician. So the person making those particular deliveries. So it helps you to stay in touch with them. If you do, go ahead and hit the send note. Oh, it's saying it's not been downloaded. So we'll just go ahead and send a note over here on our Route R5 that we've been working with. So we'll just say send a note, need you back to the shop by 2:30 p.m. Okay, so as you hit send on that, message was sent. Let's go back to our handheld. And as you go to the handheld, once again, it depends on if you have this on auto refresh. This one is, but I think it's 1 minute. So I'm just going to push it along a little bit, hit the send receive button, and notice now that this message within the Route Manager application pops up and says, we need you back to the shop by 2:30 p.m. We added the other options for email and SMS because we heard that some of you have maybe SMSs on a different phone and they only use this for route delivery and they don't ever see this, or maybe on the SMS you want them to reply. So that's why we gave you the 3 different options, having it show up here, having it come via email to their Outlook or whatever they have on their Android device, and then finally an SMS message. So that's yet a third option. Okay, so going back then to the desktop, back to our desktop here. Other options that are available, advanced route scheduling and route by map. We're actually going to be doing a seminar on the route by map here. Let me just go ahead and pull it up and give you a little brief idea of how this could potentially work. When you do, excuse me, I'm a little bit short on time, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. What this allows you to do, excuse me, is to be able to bring up, like maybe you're using what we call RDM days for your service scheduling. So you want to do it at about 45 days or maybe 180 days or even a larger scheme. Well, the desktop software will allow you to, on a customer, let's just go pull up the customer so you can see what I'm talking about here. As we go into the customer information, look over here on the route tab. Let's find somebody that's at least active. Okay, we'll take this guy here. Okay, so we have them already assigned to a route. They have a delivery frequency, but we're just going to mess that up here in a minute. And what we're going to do is say that we want to do a delivery every, let's say 45 days. So we'll go ahead and touch modify here and hit 45 days. So as we choose this, we can do the math here real quickly. That would be sometime around the middle of June. So let's do 2 people. Let's see if we can find a second one here. We can do the same way. Okay, we'll do this one here. And I want this to come up around the middle of June too, so I'll even put 50 days out here. Okay, so we have a couple of stops now. So as we go in here to the route by map function, we'd first choose a branch. Then we want to just choose any customers. We're not sure what areas things have been set up in. But what we want to do is come up with customers that are going to need to be serviced sometime in mid-June. So we'll come out here to June, and we'll say maybe from June 6th through, let's just go ahead and do June 30th. As we choose that and tell it to plot, it should then bring up a couple of stops for us. Did it bring them up? We don't seem to have gotten anything. Just back them up a little bit. What I worry about, I may have chosen people that didn't have a geocode on them. Let me just go out a little bit longer on my area or go back a ways. Date should be right. Okay. Yeah, not getting anybody. Okay, well, let me just step you through this, and maybe that's my cue to be quiet and let you all off the hook here. But basically, it would have come up here and started putting all the dots for stops that matched the criteria that we had, i.e. that their last delivery date plus the delivery days would come up approximately in this date range. And it would put a little dot up here on the map for everybody. Let me just see if I can do something with orders. I just would like to have some dots here just to give you an idea. Let's try this. Make it a little bit more something by showing up this way. Okay. Looks like all I did is drag this out even worse. Okay. Well, once again, it would show these little push pins for everybody who fell within the criteria. Then you can just take your little tool over here and draw basically a circle or an irregular polygon around those particular stops, and then say, assign that to Steve for tomorrow or the next day or whatever days you want to do. And so then it basically allows you to use the map to actually create your routes, so you don't even have to use the route dispatch manager. And by seeing things geographically, you can say, okay, well, this day I'm going to send somebody up here to Bellingham. And so then you can pull up everything that might be due within a month period and have them all be manufactured into a given route. So I think what we'll do is we'll do another Power Hour in May on that function as we get it honed in and get some good data for us, so that we aren't just sitting here struggling with something that's not working. So let me just recap then. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to our Mango Dispatch Manager. And so to recap here, by using the Mango Dispatch Manager, it gives you a good tool that will allow you to be able to see where your service locations are, be able to move them from one route to another, to be able to adjust the time on a service. And matter of fact, I didn't mention this, but when you set up your service codes, if you tell it, let me just jump over and show you that for a second. When you're creating your service codes, that would be under the equipment service codes. As you create the service code, you can put in a service number of hours. So you could make this for a half hour, for example, or 1 hour, or 45 minutes. The Mango Dispatch Manager will automatically default to the amount of time that's utilized by the equipment service codes that you have assigned to that particular stop. So consequently, if you say you want to start at 9 o'clock and you have two codes, each of them a half an hour, it will automatically block from 9 to 10 a.m. for that particular service. Now you may say, well, great, but if I'm going to be out there, I have to open up the piece of equipment. That takes most of the time. You're right. You could then adjust it and say, instead of booking a full hour, to have it only be 30 minutes, for example, or 45 minutes, whatever it might be appropriate. So by looking at your grid, you can easily see what you have to do. You can extend times out for a customer. You can move them to different days. All of those functions can easily be done here on the Mango Dispatch Manager. Furthermore, you not only have the ability to look up a customer and put in an order, but you do have other information about what type of products they take, what their last 5 deliveries have been, or maybe their last 5 service activities. So all of these things are available through the Mango Dispatch Manager. As we move forward, we'll actually be eliminating RM Live if you're presently using Route Dispatch Manager or Route Dispatch Manager Live, those products will all be eventually grandfathered or put out to pasture so that you can utilize this one tool to be able to do all of your scheduling needs. I haven't seen any questions come in, but if there are any questions, I invite you to ask them. We're going to wrap up here in the next 45 seconds unless we see some questions. But once again, make sure that you do upload or upgrade your software to Route Manager 704 R3 build 3636. And then with that, you'll have access to the exact same tools that I've shown you here today. If you do want more assistance on this, contact our tech support team. We'll be glad to help you with it. We have just about completed the manual now for Mango Dispatch Manager. So F1 help will be available soon so that you can actually pull up the manual and be able to see what even more functions, how they work, because there is a lot to this. And frankly, it's one of our extremely active development products. And so basically every week there's new functionality being added. We are saving them up for a 2-month period so that we have a chance to fully debug it. However, if there is something you're dying to have and we've completed that, we can put you onto our beta program so that you get it ahead of everybody else, just with the caveat that there still may be some work has to be done. We may have to upgrade you again if you find a bug, but certainly there's a lot of utility here. We just want to see this grow over the next few weeks, months, and even years. So in conclusion, thank you for joining our Power Hour today. This will be made available soon on YouTube so that you can actually go through anything if you missed it or be able to show it to your coworkers. So thank you very much for joining us today and have a good day.